just in a flow where he threw his, boom, slipped that, threw this, pulled that, boom. And like, he didn't make a single mistake in that last like 20, 30-second sequence, even though Khalil threw back several times. And I mean, it was just, I just used that little period as a good example of what the flow state would look like if you were in it for a whole fight, right?
Yeah.
You're just moving and flowing and you're present and you're there. And so like, again, I think that has to do more with like, you could relate more the skill of reading, I think, because people have a hard time sitting down and reading a book. Oh, you know, like, I should read, but I just have such a hard time. I can't concentrate. Or like, how many times do you read and you get 2 or 3 paragraphs and you realize you're really not even paying attention to what you're reading, and then you got to back up and you read the paragraphs again. Like, everybody does that. And I liken reading in that sense to being like meditation. And then like meditation, you try to clear your mind of all thoughts, and people think that's what it's supposed to be. But the truth is, thoughts come up continuously, and you have to learn to just allow those thoughts to come up, let them go, just observe it as it happens, right? And it's the same thing, you know, with being present in any sense, instead of, you know, going with whatever pops up in your mind and going in that direction. Instead, you're just present and you're reacting to what shows up in that moment, right? So like when you're reading, a good example, bring that back to that, is like, you're bringing yourself back to the paragraph you missed every time. Like, so same thing in meditation. You like get lost and you forget what you're supposed to do. And you just bring yourself back to center and back to presence. And that learning to stay in that moment should develop to the point where you could do it in a fight, where somebody's throwing chaos at you and everything, and you're still able to stay right there in that sense of presence.
Yeah. So you think it's just staying in the uncomfortable, pretty much, right? Because it does in meditation. It's funny that you bring that up, because obviously I think everyone and their mothers have tried meditation, and that's why they don't end up doing it. Because you're right. It's hard to stay in that present. Your mind runs and you're like, oh, this shit ain't working. And then all of a sudden they don't have the discipline. Same thing with reading. I think that's a great point. When they look at, everyone wants to read a book. Everyone wants the virtue signal, like they read and want to come off like intelligent. But it's a skill to be learned to sit there, especially with all the stimulus that we have with our phones. You know, it's easy to get distracted and think about something else, even if it's not the phone. To just sit there and read. Yeah.
So what I tell people though about that, because people ask me about meditation sometimes and reading, it's the same thing. Instead of being frustrated by the fact that, oh shit, I keep losing focus and having to reread this again, or with the meditation, instead of getting frustrated with like, I can't be present, I keep thinking about my bills that I got to pay later and my dog or my girlfriend at home. Instead of looking at those as frustrations, look at that as the practice itself. Every time I lose my train of thought and come back, that's one repetition, right? You know, like I'm getting repetitions of just bringing that attention back when I lose it. Same thing in meditation, same thing in reading. So every time you forget and got to go back, it's one more repetition of that. Every time I'll get a little stronger at not losing that focus because I have to come back, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing with meditation. So you just let that go. I actually have a favorite exercise for meditation that I call watching the watcher, where you just let whatever thoughts come up, acknowledge that thought, okay, let it go. You stay in that practice long enough, eventually you get this weird separation where you realize that you are separate from the thought itself. I'm sitting back in this separate position and witnessing the thought. So then it gets weird, because then you're like, well, who's thinking the thought? If I'm sitting back observing it, who's thinking it? You know, and there becomes this separation of consciousness. And I think once you get to that point with practicing meditation, with whatever you're doing, then you start to really be more in that present, you know, where you can let go.
Yeah, it's like kind of like an astral recall, where it's an out of body. You're looking at yourself.
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
yeah.
And then you're kind of, so say if you're like meditating, sitting down in like, you know, the cross your legs position, it's like you're looking from outside in now, and then it's like, oh, I'm just having these thoughts. Yeah, it's like mindfulness exercise, I guess you could say.
Yep.
How
and
much?
I'm saying, and there's athletes that have described the same experience while they're in their sport, you know, where they feel like they're out of body watching themselves perform. You know, it's the same mental thing. Yeah.
Crazy how that happens. How much do you think? So going into that, how much do you still meditate, by the way?
I do not stick to my practice like I should. There was a period of my life where I meditated a lot. And I mean, I'm talking about like hours a day. I was on like a spiritual soul searching kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, I hate to say that I'm not consistent about it or don't do it, but it's something that I'm working on getting going again consistently. Yeah. It's like anything else. It's like adding a stretching routine to your day. You just like just enabling yourself to get it going and start the practice again. And that's where I'm at with that. I'm trying to and recognize its benefit, but not doing it.
Oh, understood. I mean, when we kind of drop off something like just as simple as going to the gym, it's the hard part is always starting again, right? It's like if you come off an injury, it's like, oh fuck, man, I gotta do it again.
Right.
The discipline to
start the whole process again, right? Yeah.